My dear friends, members and support from CBS publisher, Ms. Pratigya, dear delegates. I, Dr. S.K. Maheshwari, welcome all of you on this beautiful online program on this evening with a webinar on the topic of how to write research proposal for funded projects. This is the topic with need of the hour, specific to nursing profession. To put more light on this topic and its relevance to the nursing profession and for the nurses, I would like to invite President CNRS North Zone, Dr. Latha Venkatesan, put more light on this topic. Before I invite Madam, I would like to share few lines about the Madam. Dr. Latha Venkatesan is our teacher, presently working as professor and principal in College of Nursing, AIIMS, New Delhi. She has 32 years of total experience in education, clinical nursing and administration. Madam started and established colleges and schools in India and Bhutan. She has organized several international and national conferences, workshops, TOTs, faculties development program and student development program. Madam has published several articles in index journals, authored textbooks, editor of national and international journals. Ma'am is member of board and various committees in various universities in India and abroad, all the AIIMS and other institute of national importance. Ma'am is founder member of Association of Nurse Executive of India, and presently she has the responsibility as a president of CNRS North Zone. I would like to invite ma'am to put light on the topic. Welcome, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sushil. On behalf of North Zone of CNRS, once again, a warm welcome to all the delegates and our resource person, Dr. Pankaj Bhardwaj. North Zone of CNRS was launched on 10th September last month, and we hosted the first webinar on evidence-based practices. And we are hosting the second webinar in the month of October. And subsequently, every month we are planning to host one webinar in the field of research. Nursing curriculum is very rich, right from GNM to that of post-graduation in nursing. We have nursing research being added as one subject. Whereas we do research as part of our academic requirement. Subsequently, when we are functioning either in the clinical area or in the educational institutions, how many of us are involved in conducting active research on contributing to the knowledge base of nursing or evidence-based clinical practices in nursing is still needs improvement in India. And especially the research after completion of the academic courses is not well taken by the nurses due to the funding aspects. We submit research proposals to various funding organizations, but unfortunately only very few nursing researchers are found to be lucky enough to get the funding. Others gets depressed when the project gets bounced back. Of course, in our country, we do not have earmarked funding for nursing research. It is merged with health research. So many a times when we submit the research projects, the importance is not gained when we have to compete with the medical research. So we also require a policy level change where at least some funds are earmarked for nursing research to promote research in nursing. At the same time, we also need to have the proposals of that caliber, which will convince the institutions or the organizations to give funds for us. I think that is where strengthening is required. And we felt the need for strengthening this particular aspect of nursing research and empowering the nurse researchers in the skills of how to write an effective proposal which will convince the funding authorities to allocate funds for nursing research. In that regard, we are very thankful Dr. Pankaj Bhardwaj, over a short notice, has accepted our invitation, and he has very rich experience in getting the funded research projects. And he was also sharing, he is promoting collaborative research projects with the nursing fraternity in his institution and across the country. So that is really a welcoming initiative. Dr. Pankaj, we also look forward as part of CNRS. If we are able to collaborate with any of your research projects, we will be really fortunate enough to join with you and host the projects. And with this short introduction, I welcome our speaker, Dr. Pankaj, and I thank Dr. Sushil, the organizing secretary, for taking all the initiatives to host this program, and Dr. Muthu Venkatachalam and Nursing Next Live for the technical support extended from the background. And welcome, delegates. Hope you will enjoy the session. Thanks very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your thoughts related to where we are lacking in fundings and how we can improve ourselves to get the funds from the various authorities nationally and internationally. I hope Dr. Pankaj are understanding our issues, that why we are where we are having difficulties. So these difficulties can be addressed in his upcoming 40-minute session. So now I am honored to invite the speaker of the day, Dr. Pankaj Bhardwaj, who is presently working as academic head, School of Public Health, Vice Dean Research, as well as additional professor, Department of Community and Family Medicine, AIIMS Jodhpur. He has a specialization and research areas in the field of vaccinology, geriatrics, implementation research, infectious disease, and tobacco control. Dr. Pankaj has received N.R. Mehta Gold Medal Award for Veer Narmad South Gujarat University for securing the highest percentage in MD Community Medicine. He has wonderful publications, has more than 150 publications, and citations are more than 10,000, with H index is more than 30. Dr. Pankaj is fellow of FIMSA, FIA PSM, EC, FMG, and many other organizations. He has several projects in his pocket, out of which I am only able to write few of them, which are ongoing with ICMR, Bloomberg Initiative, NIH Sydney, Ayush Government of India, WHO Unity Study, and WHO ACMERI, etc. So I invite Dr. Pankaj Bhardwaj for this webinar to speak upon the topic that how to write research proposal to get funded projects from various institutions and authorities. Welcome, Dr. Pankaj. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Maheshwari, and thank you for such a generous introduction. At the outset, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizers, in particular Dr. Lata Madam and Dr. Sushil. I think it's so heartening to learn that the chapter is just 1 month old, and you have been taking so much interest to motivate these young researchers and people from nursing professionals to work in this area, which we all know is currently lacking not only in nursing, but also in the medicine world. So I think all kudos to the team led by Dr. Lata and whosoever is there in the entire association who are taking this important call. So for the next 20 or 25 minutes, what I will do, I'll take that freedom because it's the second webinar, and I will not go much into the technicality, but I will always think when these kind of webinars are organized, and these are the initial 1 or 2 or 3 interaction with the people, we should understand that what should we do and what should we not do in order to secure funding. So for the next 20-25 minutes, what I will do is I will focus more on what should be done and what are the things which we should not do if we want to secure funding. So please allow me to use my presentation. So in between what I also take permission, I may switch off my camera if I find that there is a problem with the web this strength, because currently today is Saturday, so I'm not sure when this issue of Wi-Fi connection came in the or comes in the institution, but I'll still keep it open. Dr. Maheshwari, can you see my slides?
Yes,
Yeah.
slides are visible and are in full screen mode and moving also. You can go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So now let us take the first question first. And as Madam Lata is very well, deliberated in the beginning itself, that why every one of us wants to write a grant proposal. And many a time question comes, is it because of money? Do we get money through these grant proposals? Then those who are there in at least in the mid-level career or on the higher level career, they know that it's not about the money, because most of the time these grants are very competitive and the kind of funds or budget which we propose is not going to give us anything. Most of the time we also know that in institution like government institution, whether it is All India Institute of Medical Sciences or other government institution, the researchers are needed to be in kind. That means they are not supposed to charge anything from these grants. We can only take grant budget and we can only utilize it in taking some of the project staff, logistics, some equipments, and those day-to-day costs. That means money definitely is not the thing for which we usually write all these grants. Now, the second question arises, do we do it for a professional goal? Definitely, yes. We all know. We are from either from nursing professional or either we are from medical professional. We know there are only two ways to get ourselves a kind of an identity. And that identity is, number one, amongst our patients, and identity amongst our peers. So when it comes to an identity amongst our patients, we all know if we are good in our work, professionally we are competent, whether we are from nursing background or medical, we'll get a kind of an identity which we always crave for. But when it comes to the identity amongst our professionals, peers, it is not what exactly help us out. Whether we are not so good or not so bad professional amongst the nursing or amongst the medical, amongst professional peers, the only thing which is going to keep us apart from others or which will keep us ahead of others would be publications and the questions which is sometimes asked in our fraternity, that how many grants proposals do we have? Last but not the least is promotion. You all know that in majority of institutions, the promotions are not time bound. Rather, they are based on the kind of work which we are doing at our professional life. And I can share you with our experience, whether we are from nursing or medical background in institution like AIIMS. We need to show that we are doing a kind of good research work in order to get promoted beside our regular job of providing patient care. So now the question arises, as Madam Lata was telling earlier, that unfortunately, when we apply, very less number of people or very less number of professionals are able to get a kind of a success. So do we have some kind of data from India, from the nursing or from the medical professionals, that what is a success rate? Friends, I would like to share with you is that there is no such data, unfortunately, available from Indian scenario. But there are data available from countries like United Kingdom, which have a very standard and a set way of funding mechanism. So we call it as UKRI, and many of you who are interested in research, and I request them go to this website, which is United Kingdom Research and Innovation website. We call it UKRI. They say only the quarter or 1/4 of the projects can could successfully reach to a successful funding. So that means only 25, less than 25% is the success rate for grants. And when it comes to fellowships, many of us know that fellowships are usually given to those who are less than 40 years of age or 45 years of age in some of the areas. But in all those also who are less than 40 years of age, the success rate is only 18%. That means it is even less than the number of grants which is secured in these areas. Now, the third question arises. Many of us who are attending this webinar today are very good academicians, whether we are from nursing, from medical, from surgical background, and we know that we are such a good writer. So many of us are prolific writer, many of us are good academician, and when it comes to the kind of English language, many of us, say it with certainty that I have a very good writing skills. But unfortunately, when it comes to grant proposal, we find that even in spite of being a very good academician, knowing our subject well, being a very prolific writer in academics, we are not able to secure good funding. Now the question arises, would that mean these two things are not synonymous? Friends, we need to understand this from the very beginning, that being a good academician or prolific writer is not necessarily converting us to a person who would secure good grants, and we may get rejected. Let me take you to the kind of a difference, or what we call it as, what are the difference between an academic writing and a grant writing? So when it comes to an academic writing, please remember that academic writing is a scholarly pursuit. That means it's more a kind of a scholastic work. But when it comes to a grant writing, we need to understand, I was discussing in the beginning with the organizers, that we need to be smart enough to know what exactly sponsor wants. This sponsor agency can be from government. This sponsor agency can also be from private. That hardly matters. But we need to understand what sponsor wants. That means in academic writing, we write what we think, what we want. We would only present that thing to the masses. But for the grant writing, it is not so. In academic writing, we write those things which we have already worked on. But in cases of grant writing, the entire thing is in future tense. That means we need to propose an idea. If we say in another word, we say sell yourself or sell your idea. And we know that in order to sell our idea or sell ourselves, we need to be very smart and competent. Now, in academic writing, it is more or less a theme-centered business. But when it comes to a kind of a grant writing, it is totally project-based. And in the later slides, I'll tell you what does that mean. There is a project which has been, conceptualized by the sponsors, funders, and we need to work on this. It is not a theme which we are currently thinking in terms of academic writing. Most of the time in academic writing, it's not so personal. We Indians are, we have been taught, don't say I means aham, I means a kind of an arrogance. But in grant writing, we need to be more personal. They always want, these sponsors or funders, when we take our projects to them and when we defend our projects, they only want to know what I can do, what my team can do. There, we need to be very clear that in grant writing, they want to know the strength of you as a researcher, strength of me as a researcher, strength of my team as a researcher. So there is always a personal tone. Then, as I said earlier, academic writing, if I'm a prolific writer or if I am a very good academician, I can do it alone. But believe me, friends, for a good grant proposal, you need a very strong team. So if you're not having a team, believe me, it's very difficult to get success. Length versus brevity, very important part. In academic writing, there is no definite numbers, or I should say a kind of a word limit in which we present our idea. But when we go to a grant writing, believe me, there are very much brevity. That means anything which we propose should be very clear, specific, and in as less number of words as possible. So that means we should be able to present our idea very specifically without putting them in unnecessary word. Last but not the least, in academic writing, or when I'm a prolific writer, it depends how much good in English I am, or how much skillful I am in my literary skills. But believe me, these funders are most of the time non-scientific people. Take an example of Bill and Melinda Gates. So they are not the doctors or nursing professionals. They are actually the business group or the sponsors who are from corporate social responsibilities. So these people are those who are not from our background. So we need to write or use that terminology, which is highly understandable. That is also a question when it goes to ICs or Institution Ethics Committee. And we all know who are there a part of IC, that there is a very important person in IC, we call him or her as layperson or the other person as legal. If they do not understand the project is not going to move forward. So if you look at this kind of cartoon, it definitely tells us what exactly happens. First of all, we should be able to have a kind of a good luck where we get an information from our peers that there is a grant opening somewhere. We need to be at our toes to know the closing dates. We need to have a very good resume. We need to know what are the economic impact criterias. And sometimes when we do all the things, we find that it's not for us, it's for an earlier career grant. So that means the issue is that grant writing, though, is not a very difficult task, but definitely needs more engagement right from the very beginning to the end. This is again a kind of a thing which I would like to share with you, is that these are 5 or 6 important things which we need to know, that we need to get some kind of technical resources or assistance. We need a kind of persistence, proposal, timely proposal, a kind of then after that proposal, there is a technical review. We need to revise or resubmit. Sometimes we are fortunate enough to secure it, but many a times we should be ready to get rejections. Now, there are 3 traits of good grant proposal. So if you ask me, cut short and please summarize what are the traits of a good grant proposal, I'll say 3 important traits of a good grant proposal. Number 1, it should have a very good planning. So if it's not planned well, it is not going to get success. Extensive preparation. And number 3 is ready to accept inputs and criticism. Many times I've seen when I put my first proposal, I still remember 15, 14 years back, when I went to a funding agency for a money of just 23, 24 lakhs. And when I defend myself, and when I got the kind of a criticism from the funders, I was so upset and I was so hurt that I did not put it again. But my peers and my very good seniors told me that please don't lose heart. Don't take your first draft as your first love and start working on it. Put all those things which has been asked by the funders and see that you'll succeed it. So there are few things which we need to understand before we write a project, and I'll take you to the further slides, that what should we actually look for, or what are the prerequisites of writing a good grant proposal. First of all, please see whether you have a necessary expertise for those or not. For example, if some nursing professional is putting a proposal in funding agency in a neonatology, he or she needs to understand whether the kind of neonatology unit which is needed for that. For example, I still remember RBSK or Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram project, where a nursing professional can also apply. But if they do not have DIC or District Early Intervention Center, they cannot propose such kind of funding. So please see whether you have necessary expertise or necessary resources to do it. Whether you have necessary personal or preliminary data to compete. That is also very important. Believe me, friends, for necessary personnel, we mean most of the funding agencies, they do not allow huge number of personnel to be deputed in a funding. So we need to understand we should be having those necessary personnel either with us or with our collaborators. I'll come to that later, in order to secure good funding. And we should have some preliminary data to compete. What does that mean? Madam Lata agrees to that, as she's in the leadership position in AIIMS, that we need to work on small pilot projects first, because most of the funding agencies, they ask for whether you have done some work, some preliminary work in this area or not. And that comes from non-funded projects or seed projects. AIIMS usually provides some seed money to medical and nursing professionals where they can use this seed money to have a small project, develop those small projects, generate that data. And when you are actually applying for those funding agencies, please put those results that these are some of the data which we have. Built on that, we would like to scale up the project with the help of the similar agency. Now, this is also very important, that find agency with similar goals. Then only there are the chances of securing funds would be high. Now, friends, I'll take you to a very good book. And I also request, because CNRS is working very focused on the research areas, it's a very beautiful book, which is written from the Emory University of School of Medicine. And they say there are 6 or 7 steps with which you can secure good funding. And the very first step is, they say, is to maximize lead time. That means, which I already said, that try to work on the planning much. And that lead time is proactive search for funding opportunity. I'll share with you what exactly AIIMS Jodhpur is doing. And I think the same can be done, or I believe Madam Lata will agree that also been done in their institution also. What we are doing in research cell in AIIMS Jodhpur is, we have made a group of 3 or 4 people in from the faculty group who have been given the responsibility of collecting a kind of research calls across country. So what they generally do is, every 15 days or 1 month, they meet the dean of research and they tell them that these are the call for proposals who are still open, and these should be disseminated to those who can apply for that. If it has not been there currently in your place, we can start it. And there can be a kind of identifying 3 or 4 active faculty members or young researchers who can put all these call for proposals together, put to the nursing principal madam, and then the same can be disseminated to all. So that is one thing. So proactive research for funding opportunities. Sometimes we may find that the last date is already over. So that is something which is an important part. The one important part is quality time to produce this proposal. That is also important. Try to find out the gap analysis, and how we can find it. We call it as finer criteria. If our idea is novel or not, how can we do it? Again, similar kind of training sessions or online webinars which can be conducted. All our professionals and researchers should be well versed with these kind of search strategies: comprehensive PubMed search, EndNote search, Mendeley's, Zotero. What does that mean? For example, if I want to work in an area, currently, as I say, I've been working in research in the BD area by Johns Hopkins. So when Johns Hopkins put us a call and we thought we should apply for that, then what we did was, we tried to see a kind of a PubMed search. What is the work which is already been done, and what is the gap in which we can do work? Currently, we are also working. Yes, we would also like to share on a dementia caregiver burden. So in that case also, we try to find out through PubMed, Mendeley's, Zotero. These are the search engines. We try to find out, these are the online libraries through which we try to find out what is already available and what can we work on. Then the third is, how fundable is your idea? This is again a question. Many a time researchers ask us, if I'm going to apply in this, would I get fund? How can I get an idea whether this idea is fundable or not? There is a website, and believe me, if you can Google it, it is known as NIH Reporter. So put your idea into that, put that keywords into that, and they will tell you whether there are some agencies which fund it or not. With my experience, I would also like to share with you all, friends, and that is that most of the time, international agencies fund us more than the national agencies. And I'll tell you why. Though the agencies which fund like ICMR, DBT, DST, they fund us, they have a huge repository, they have a good funding mechanism. But the issue is that most of us apply over there only. But for the international agencies, we are not aware. They usually make calls and very less number of people apply. So please use NIH Reporter to know what are the previously funded projects. Try to find out what are the eligibility criteria, whether we are allowed to apply in that. Sometimes researchers ask us, How can we know what is the sponsor's agenda? You can get it very easily. For example, currently when I'm working on dementia, then I would try to download all the articles which have been published in dementia. Then at the end of the at the end of that, published article, you will find at the end, there is always a mention of whether this article was funded or not. And if it is funded, there is always a mention of the name of the funder. Then if I'm a smart researcher, I will find that these kind of articles or these kind of work is funded by Wellcome Trust, or it is funded by NIH or Emory University. So I can get a view of that. So try to find out through these published articles that what is the funding mechanism. If this is being funded, who fund this? If it is an international or an Indian agency. Most of the time in international agency, there is a grant officer which has been allotted and earmarked. So that earmarked the kind of funds. And believe me, most of the time, international agencies are very responsive. Many a times my researchers, my students said that when we send emails to our Indian researchers, they don't reply, or they reply a bit with a delay. But believe me, the kind of international responses are always good, and try to send a kind of a query to grant officers and they do reply. Now, as I said, that how you are going to get it, that is all. What I said, that do find acknowledgement sections, agency missions, and you'll be able to find out whether the idea is fundable and whether you are going to secure a good funding. Now, again, there is a question. Can someone help me gauge or improve my idea? Definitely. Peers or senior colleagues or collaborators, as Madam Lata was telling, it's always important to look for collaborators. Please don't hesitate in writing an email to those collaborators who are working in that area. Everyone needs a team which is very active and very motivated to take the task forward. So try to search for those people who are working in the area which is of your interest also, and send them email. Then gather preliminary data. So how can you do that? Again, as I said, start doing some pilot project. Look for seed grants, and I'll come to those websites where you can get seed money or seed grants. At the end of this, I will also share this presentation to the organizers, because there are some websites on which you can get seed amounts or seed projects which help us to apply for small project money. Now, step 6 is budget. Have a look on this template, which we sometimes give to our early researchers. So templates are usually, like, for example, salary, travel, lab test, equipment, dissemination. I'll tell you what usually we do and we fail when we apply with some budget. For example, ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research. ICMR very specifically says that when you are submitting a project, more than 30% should not be from the salary head, or 30% or less can be put as a salary head only. Many times we find project, when I assess the projects in ICMR and when we give our comments to the researchers, we find that the salary, the kind of a research officers or professional or personal we have applied for, is actually exceeding more than 30 or 40%. Or when we are putting a kind of a contingency, or when we are putting a kind of a logistics, that means sometime is being utilized from the second year. So all these things are actually looked for. I'll tell you, there is a template in ICMR, and I would like to share with you is that how we assess the kind of projects which we receive in ICMR. Now, these are 2 or 3 websites. I request all of you. Sometimes they don't work. Like currently, one of my students was telling that Emory University is not allowing to go for it. They are asking for a login. But there are, but try to find out these sites where you can get a kind of examples of successful grants, and also from failed proposals. As we all say, that if we look at why a proposal failed, help us to understand what issues we should not do, or what we should not do to fail in a project writing. So the kind of methodology, or when I say what exactly the people see when what exactly people see in these projects, then sorry, there is some technical issue. Yeah, so these are the 4 or 5 things which usually the grant agencies see when they assess the project for funding. And I'll share with you this template which we are using in ICMR. So have a look on this. So as we all know, we are all a part of organization where there are research methodology classes, but try to see, for example, if we are writing a background, we should be aware that there is a kind of a scoring which is being done from the side of an agency. Believe me, sometimes if I am very good at English, I will put lot of things in the background. And I forget that there is always a score which has been allotted to us. So if suppose my English is very good and I'm writing a very good background story, I can get a maximum of 3 marks only. If I'm not writing something which is putting a kind of a relevance to the entire project, I may lose a lot of marks. So that means even if I'm writing less background, but I'm writing very specific relevant things, which explains what is the relevance of the project, I will get 6 marks. So there are some fixed marks which has been allotted to the kind of assessment which all assessors need to, there is an objective criteria. Sometimes people say, investigators, I'm a new person, I may not get funds. No, it's not. Investigators team is only 4 marks, which ICMR usually give. So what we need to understand is that in a successful project, it is not just how new or how old am I in that project. If you look at the most important part, which is the maximum, which is study design, and most of the time, that's why most of the medical schools or nursing schools give weightage to study design methodology classes, where you can understand that if I am writing a very good study design, very robust study design, I'll get the maximum. And for the budget, that is also very important. And believe me, sometimes it is also been asked that very good proposal is submitted to ICMR, but because there is the budget was over, so it got rejected. Most of the time, it never happens. There is always a kind of feedback from the ICMR or other agencies where they say, if you can put the entire idea in a low budget, we will fund that. Now, this is again kind of 2 type of projects which we say are usually happen in the funding agency. We call them first as a solicited project, and we call them by the name of RFPs, where we say request for proposals. Like, for example, 2 days back, I was in another webinar where we were talking about operational research in TB. Then every year, 2 times RFP are called. Or in ICMR, different task forces call for RFPs. So please look for those agencies where there is a request for proposals. The second is, which we call as unsolicited. That means there are no calls, but you can directly move ahead. I'll tell you, you can ask me that, what are the chances of securing it? So there is, for example, I was mentioning earlier that we have been currently working in John Hopkins Philanthropies and on the tobacco cessation. So there was no call, but we thought that why not to start working on tobacco cessation? And we made a proposal, and there is a grant officer which is available on the website, and we share with him or her only a brief note whether the agency would help us in securing some funding on that. So these are known as unsolicited projects. So there are 2 types of project proposals you can work on: unsolicited and solicited. Solicited means when there is a call for proposals, and unsolicited when you can apply. You can also ask me, unsolicited are most of the time available in international agencies. Usually Indian agencies, they don't accept, and they always look for when they are actually asking for proposals. So these are the type of different funding mechanisms or grant, what we look for, as I said earlier also. So apart from that, there is one most important thing which I think I would forget otherwise is for funding, there is not just the scientific funding which you are going to do in future. If you have done something, you can also secure travel funds, and that is also been sometimes included in a successful funding mechanism. Now, these are the examples of some of the online funding websites. So I'll not read all the information which I've put in the slide, but I would be sharing that and would request the organizers to share with the others that these are some of the online funding websites which are available and where you can get more information. Yes, now let us come to the Indian agencies. So what are the Indian agencies which can help us out, and where can we get the information? So there is a website, if you can look, these are all the fellowships for scientists. And believe me, as Madam Lata was saying, though currently there is no earmarked money for the nursing professionals, but the nursing professionals are now included in many fellowships. And many countries, because currently we are working in Swedish agencies and other Nordic countries, they are actually preferring nursing professionals than the medical professionals when it comes to the fellowships. So please look at these opportunities which are available at different websites. So these are the examples of some of the websites, and there is a kind of a body which is like Department of DBT or Ministry of Science and Technology, which put that. There is again a kind of a special funding mechanism which they have put for the women researchers only who are less than 40 years of age. Now, these are some of the cooperative agreements with which you can also apply. And again, as I said, currently in AIIMS Jodhpur, usually research cell looks after that. But in the nursing school, it can also be seen by the principal office. Now, these are some of the examples. I'll not read all these names, and I'll come to some of the things which I think is important for us to understand. These are the 2 or 3 sites which I request all my fellow researchers and those who are attending this webinar today should look for. INCLIN currently, unfortunately, is not working. It is under some maintenance, but we all know that this is India Clinical Network, Epidemiology Network, where they put all these opportunities with their eligibility to us. You can still put India Bioscience in the Google search, and then you'll get a lot of opportunities which are currently available funding mechanisms, and DevNet India, where you need to put your CV. And if suppose your CV matches to the funding call or RFP, the agency or this DevNet, they usually request you to apply for that. Now, this is I think the second last or last slide. So the question is asked that how to approach these sponsors. I think the most important part which we are doing today is, which Madam Lata said in the beginning, that it's more about networking, and when we are actually looking for in the scientific world, who else is working in the area of my interest. And when I put a kind of a word to him today, as I know that there is this hospice and palliative day, and I attended that session today in my nursing college, where the nursing professionals, they started working with community and family medicine and public health department to work on a kind of a community palliative work. And they started this work very briefly. But then what they did, they jointly proposed it to ICMR, secured some grant, and currently they've secured a very good grant from Corporate Social Responsibility, where they're actually working on it. So that means it starts from a very small step of bringing a seed grant, but then building it up to the level of corporate social responsibility. So as I said, they try to contact these program officers. Please be prepared. Don't get scared of rejections. Many times we say that we have not been attended by these officers or ICMR people or these DBT, DST. But the only thing is that if we want these funding, we need to have time, practice, and patience. So 3 important things again: ensure alignment. As I said, whether you are a very good writer or a prolific writer, please make your interest in the interest of agency. If you are not being funded, it's not a failure. Please start looking for another funder and try to see if other people are working in this area, where you can again put your entire proposal to them. And please don't take things personally. If there is a criticism, please respect that and review, revise, and resubmit. So this is my last slide. So they say how to succeed. It can only be try, 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 and try. And at the end, definitely as we all have seen in our earlier career, when we were early career professionals, that at the end, we could secure good funding. So thank you so much for being so patient, and thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Thank you so much for your highly informative, practical and lively presentation on topic that is writing research proposal for funded projects. And your presentation was very live, and you shared your personal experience where a researcher gets rejections and all. Dr. Pankaj started his presentations with what should a researcher do and what should not do. Along with this, why we need to take grants for either promotions or for the job purpose or for our professional competencies. He also told us that no access data available in government of India, that the application status and the rejections that, but he shared the data from the US side. He also shared with us 3 traits of grant proposals, which includes good planning, extensive preparation, and ready to accept criticism in positive manner. He also shared with us seed projects which are necessary to do before sharing your total project with funding agencies. Then he shared with us proposal evaluation performa, which has certain points on each and every part of the proposal, like background, relevance, methodology, and all. And at the end, he shared with us that time, practice, and patience are very important to get the funded projects. And the most important thing is that keep trying, and keep trying. So this is the message from this webinar from our very renowned experts who are actively working in this field of getting funded projects from national agencies as well as international agencies. Before taking questions, answer from delegate side, I personally would like to thank Dr. Pankaj from my side as well as from CNRS North Zone for accepting our invitation such a short time, as well as sharing your ideas and experience on this topic. So thank you so much. If the President, ma'am, allows, can we take ma'am few questions which are shared on the question answer box?
Yes, Dr. Sushil. And I also would like to personally express my thanks, and we thoroughly enjoy listening to you, Dr. Pankaj. You have shared your journey as a young researcher, how you found with rejected proposals. Still, you kept on trying. Sharing such experiences are very, very important. You have shared the resources and motivated all of us to continue to apply for funded projects. And it also was helping us to introspect where did we go wrong when our projects were returned. Especially I felt the budget part was very, very useful. Sometimes we present a budget which is not very realistic, or it is not under the headings which is expected by the funding organizations. And looking for the thrust areas where the funding agency is interested is the primary concern we need to have in our mind. I am sure the references you have given where the agencies are interested in funding nurses is highly encouraging. I'm sure the delegates who were attending the program would have got really benefited. Many were asking for your slides. So we said it is, the program is also getting telecasted in YouTube, so they can view in the YouTube anytime, and they can refer the websites which you were mentioning in the slides. Thank you very much. And also there are very interesting questions. I think Sushil will be reading out the questions. Very interesting question. Somebody is working abroad and they are asking, still can they apply for funding from India? They are Indian nurses working elsewhere outside India. Can they apply for funding? And is it really necessary to have a medical person as a principal investigator? Can a nurse be a PI? And should we be attached to a medical college? And are we working? If we are not working as an independent researcher, can we apply for funding? These are some of the interesting questions I read. Probably you can answer the questions of the delegates. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So I think thank you so much, madam, for your kind and nice words. And Dr. Sushil, if you can take these questions one by one, I'll
Yeah, sure,
try
sure.
my
Your
level best.
presentation is, Dr. Pankaj, your presentation is highly appreciated by our delegates, and we reached up to 430 mark presentation delegates, those who are joined. Presently, still we have 420 delegates, those who are watching right now. So not taking much of time. The questions which is being, there are so many questions are available, and it would not be possible to address each and every one. But the few of question would like to take that. One of our delegate is asking, is it necessary that why the grants are allocated only for academic doctors or medical professionals working in medical college? Whereas such grants are not allocated to the postgraduate or PhD nurses or those nurses who are working in hospitals. Also, it might be a personal question, why do the doctors' research work is preferred in getting fund from the various agencies as compared to the nursing researchers?
Yeah, I think the question is very genuine, and most of the time these similar questions are asked in our institution also. Unfortunately, I'll take the question with a pinch of salt. In our country, from the very beginning, the patient is always considered to be the client of doctors, and they say this subject or this the patient is belong to whom. So he belongs to or she belongs to whom. So the entire conflict starts in a medical school with the question is, patient kiska hai, whose patient is this, and they say that patient is registered under a doctor. So that is an issue. Unfortunately, because of that conflict which has been there for years together, the nursing personnel or nursing professional was not accepted as a sole investigator in any research work. But I would also like to share with you is that many institutions, including ours, they have started discussions have started being there. Like, for example, I was mentioning palliative care. So it is the prime investigator should always be a nursing professional, not a doctor, because he or she is looking after this. So because I'm not the authority to say that how the rules and regulations are going to change, but the things are changing. The second thing is, I would also like to, say, as I said, that in funding, it is mostly a team. So it's not just solo person. So even if a nursing professional is applying or a doctor is applying, even for a doctor, if he's or she's applying for a palliative care or even for a casualty care or care in triage, the funder or those people who are actually assessing the process, they are going to ask this, where is the nursing professional in this, where is the COI? So you need to put it. So it's the both way. So for the doctors also, if suppose they are applying in a project where they need a COI in form of a nursing professional, it is a must. And for a nursing currently it is also. So unfortunately, as I said, that most of the time the rules and regulations are being framed earlier, and we have been working on that. And there are no people to raise this issue in forum. And currently, as you raised it, now the professionals are there. Madam Lata knows, because she's there in many committees, that these issues have been brought to the notice and they've been addressed well. So I think, but as I said, it is only in India, not in other countries. So you can be a sole investigator in other countries. So you can apply as a sole investigator or principal investigators. And but for country like ours, at least in government setup, still some kind of issues are there. And there they say that please make a team in which there is a medical professional should always. The second question which was asked was, if they are not attached to a medical school or a nursing school, they are practicing nurse only, can they apply for research funding or not? So currently there is no such mechanism there, because we need to go for an institution ethics committee. I did not mention it, but that is a very important part. Any project needs to be approved by institution ethics committee. And if it is to an IC is going to ask this question, that who from the institute is going to take responsibility of the ethical practices or good clinical practices being followed. So if you are not attached to a nursing school, or if you are not attached to a medical school, most of the time, the funders or IC, they usually don't approve it. So again, as I said, it's a win-win situation. Even if you are practicing nurse and you are not attached to a nursing school, please make a liaison with the nursing school faculty, and then with the nursing school faculty, do apply. So don't apply alone. So that's not a very good idea.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The next, another query is that person is Indian national but working abroad. Can still ask for funding in our national agencies?
Yeah, as I said again, he or she can apply in Indian agencies, but again, he or she needs to get collaborated with some nursing school in India. So I know still Montreal University, I've been working with a very renowned nursing professional there. Many of us know her well. She's working in gender issues, but she would like to work in a gender equity in TB care. And then she approached us, can we apply together in some area? So if somebody is working outside for Indian agencies to get a funding, they need Indian partners. And that too, if they are working in nursing schools or if they are working in medical schools, so not alone.
Thank you, sir. Can you put more light on the seed project? Like, what does it mean? Can you clarify within few lines?
Yeah, so seed projects are very small project money. Like, for example, it can be of the order of 50,000 rupees only or 30,000 rupees only. So usually what happens, you can, put a kind of a, even Google search, you can say it's seed projects for dementia eligibility nursing professionals. So you'll get a kind of a funding agency names, which will say that these are just for seed money. Seed money means you have an idea, but because you have this idea, which you are not sure whether it is going to work or not, so better to go for a piloting, better to go for just a small idea vetting. So it is being done. And now there are many agencies, and I think seed money is also being granted by associations or organizations. Like, for example, in medical colleges, the professional, like, for example, Indian Academy of Pediatrics or Indian Academy of Preventive Social Medicine, they give seed money to the new researchers. And it's the people like Lata Madam, Maheshwari sir, who are at leadership positions. So they can start it at their level of having small 10,000 project, 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees. We do it in STS projects also, short-term studentship scholarships. So these are seed money projects where very small funding is given. There is an idea which is vet, it get published, and then funding agency knows that there is a funding, which is a seed money, which was that there is always a kind of a confidence to funder that this idea is sellable. Somebody has already put money into that. So that is known as what is seed money is all about.
Thank you, sir. One
Yes.
query that,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I do agree with Dr. Pankaj. I would like to add on to his explanations that AIIMS Delhi, they are giving 2 lakhs to support undergraduate projects. So being an undergraduate student, they are motivated to pursue research. So that kind of seed money is being given. And God willing, as Doctor was mentioning, CNRS also can give some money. We were discussing in our EC committee meeting, provided our funding gets strengthened, we can also give some amount of seed money. And in my knowledge, the nursing councils and universities are also giving money. It is not a huge money, but some money has been given, like 50,000, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, up to 4 lakhs the universities are giving. I think those kind of opportunities also have to be taken, and that is earmarked exclusively for nursing research. Discipline wise, it is earmarked in universities and institutions of national importance like AIIMS. So that is possible, because I saw one of the participant has asked the question, I am only a BSc nursing graduate, can I do research? Yes, in BSc nursing, we learn nursing research and you all do group project. It doesn't matter whether you are a BSc nursing person or an MSc nursing person. What matters is the strength of the research ideas or the problems which you choose and what are you going to contribute. And many hospitals are getting accredited now by the accrediting agencies, and they are taking small nursing audits projects, which is also compulsory part of the accreditation process. And I have seen many undergraduate nurses are successfully doing it at institutional level. So please feel motivated. Even if you are an undergraduate, you can still try for writing projects. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Pankaj, I know that you may have very busy schedule. If you allow, may I take few more questions?
Oh, yes. Please do.
Thank you. One question is very relevant, that suppose if principal investigator gets job in some another university, whether the fund granted will move with principal investigator or will he stay in the same university where he was earlier working or where he got the fund?
Yeah, so it depends on the institution rules. So it differs from institution to institution. So funds is always given to a funding to an investigator, looking at the strength of the investigator. But if you remember, I also told you that affiliation matters. So if somebody is working in AIIMS, so he or she got this fund not just because he is a very good researcher, but because he is working in AIIMS also, that matters. So if suppose somebody is, shifting his base or her base from one organization to another, it depends on whether the organization is ready to shift the entire grant to that organization or not. So it's a very difficult or tricky situation. I'll tell you, many a times it happens that researcher wants his or her funds to get shifted to another organization, but the institution may say no. If you remember, PI alone cannot give a project. They need a team. So we call them as co-investigators. So in most of the time, in those cases, PI gives all the responsibilities to co-investigators, and co-investigators then they take the lead. So most of the time, if you ask us, like institution like ours, AIIMS, so we need a kind of no objection from all the co-investigators. So if all the co-investigators says that we have no objection of taking this project with the PI, then only it can be shifted. If any of the co-investigators say no, it cannot be shifted, because all co-investigators are of equal repute. They have contributing equally. So that doesn't make sense that if my PI is moving, I was also contributing, and now he or she is saying that I will take this project. But if I have no objection, institution usually have no objection. Funding agency, they don't look into these matters. They usually put all the things to the institution rules. Hope I could address it.
Yeah, thank you, sir. This question is from College of Nursing, MN's Bangalore, and madam is asking like how long a researcher has to wait for getting response, like probable time to get the response from funding agencies. This is the first questions. And the second questions, I would like to collaborate with another delegate that many times they says that you share your previous experience in getting the funded projects, but the person is in the beginner, like applying first time. So how to deal with this issue also?
Yeah, so I think I could address the second thing. In my pro forma is so strict, I cannot put, zero or, these kind of thing. Like, for example, if there is only 4 marks, I cannot give it 10 marks or something if AIIMS is applying and state medical college or private is applying. So in that case, please don't feel low if you don't have much experience in that area, because in that case, you can only be getting a kind of not being benefited in one area only. If your other areas are very strong, they will cover it up. Second thing is, though it's not, very, I should not say it, but if you're very smart, take 1 or 2 co-investigators who have a good experience. And here comes the role of a very good senior. So please look for those seniors who are good in research, and they're also going to help you out. Their CV then will put marks in those, because this PI, it's not about PI experience. It's about PI / COI experience. If suppose COI is having good experience, you'll get marks for that also. So that is one question. The second question you said, I forgot the first question. I think I replied the second first. So what was the first question, Maheshwari sir?
How long a researcher has to wait for getting response from the funding agency?
Sir, usually international agencies and national agencies, there is a timeline which is there in the advertisement itself, and they specify that after on which month they are going to get the results. So most of the time, the national or international agencies are very clear, because they follow, like for example, for Indian agencies, they follow the financial calendar. So March के पहले उन्हें disburse करना पड़ता है. सो उसके पहले वो रिजल्ट निकालती हैं, उसके पहले पूरा फंड डालना है उनको. सो यूजुअली इट हैपेंस. सो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इट इज already mentioned in the advertisement and they follow it. In principle, they follow it.
Yeah, there are many other questions, but I think most of the questions already been answered during your presentation, so I'm not taking all of them. The last thing which is
Dr. Sushil, one more question is, somebody is doing PhD. As a PhD student, can they get funding for their research?
Yes, ma'am. Definitely, it's a very good question, and I think PhD researchers most of the time get if they know the correct funding agency. I'll tell you, in my place, these students they have their network and they know that what are the agencies which are going to give us the funding. So PhD scholars most of the time, but they need to know which agency they should approach. But definitely PhD is the most important, I should say they are the most important potential candidates to secure funding, because we know that they are dedicated to research. So PhD and postdoc, they are very good potential candidates to secure funding. Yes, definitely.
And one more question is, how many co-investigators can we have? Any limitation on the number of co-investigators?
So definitely not, madam. At our place also, the only thing is we need to justify. These funders, they always put this question, justify the role of each and every co-investigator. So if a project is like, for example, currently we are doing we are submitting a project in dementia. So they say, please specify the role of nursing professional, please specify your role, please specify the role of the technical or the paramed staff or the engineer who is going to develop that app. So if the kind of justification is good, you can have n number of co-investigators in that. The only thing which funders don't enjoy and they don't like is when somebody said that we have taken this co-investigator and he's or she is our administrative head. Then they don't like this, because for being the administrative head, one should not be the co-investigator. But definitely, if he says no, he's going to be the kind of a partner who is going to contribute in the concept as well as the improvisation of the entire project, he or she again is a potential co-investigator in the team.
Dr. Sushil, you can continue. Sorry for interfering.
Sir, आप mute हैं. Dr. Mahesh.
Thank you, ma'am, for asking the questions. So, Dr. Pankaj, we have fired so many questions on you, and you answered all the questions, and our delegates are definitely very happy and fortunate to attend this webinar, especially those nursing researchers who are either in the having thought of getting funds from various agencies or are on the rejection phase. Because many of the questions, when I read the questions from the delegates, they are in rejection phase. So they have learned a lot with these presentations, and we are very thankful to you for taking these sessions. So as we are crossed 13 minutes above our 13 minutes above the timing, I would like to invite Secretary of CNRS North Zone to propose vote of thanks, Dr. Cecilia.
A very good evening to all, one and all present here. On behalf of CNRS North Zone, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank our resource person of the day, Dr. Pankaj Bhardwaj. It was an extensive presentation, sir. The knowledge we gained is enormous, and I think it will be hope it will be of use for the participants in their research projects. I extend a warm note of thanks to our organizing chairperson and the president of CNRS North Zone, Dr. Lata Venkatesan, who has been always innovative in our thinking and a dynamic leader who guides us in day in and out for conducting such wonderful workshops. And I extend a warm note of thanks to the organizing secretary of the day and treasurer of CNRS North Zone, Dr. Sushil Mageshwari, for taking up the initiative and conducting the program a great success. And I thank all the executive members of CNRS North Zone for their support, and CBS for their technical support, and all the participants. Hope you all had an informative session and the day was fruitful. Thank you. Have a happy weekend.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Doctor, feedback is around 400 delegates stayed until vote of thanks. That shows the success of the program.
Thank you so much.
430 logged in and 400 are still remaining with us. Thank you so much, and we look forward for continued association with you. Please help us in taking projects with CNRS, and we will be happy to associate with you as an association and host projects, multi-state project or a multi-country project. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Look
Thank
forward.
you. So before concluding, I would like to inform all the delegates that we are having a lineup of series of webinars in next 5 to 6 months, and the supposed topics are copyright and patent making, Cochrane, good clinical practice and ethical guidelines, data analytics, and policy making. So these are few of the topics which we have in lineup with in a form of webinars in the subsequent month. So hope you see all of the delegates in the next month with another topic, that is copyright and patent making. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.